across Canada to work from home as quality engineers and also in other departments. Our recruitment team is made up of 2 of our 3 recruiters are on the spectrum, myself included. And also we have a vice president in our company that's autistic as well. So it's not just limited to tech roles. I started blogging about 9 years ago, as I mentioned, because there wasn't a lot of information out there about being on the spectrum that I could find that wasn't real stereotypical and oftentimes just wrong, such as autistic people lacking empathy or not being able to have relationships or not wanting to socialize, not being able to dress themselves, etc. And also at that time, there was very little information about females and how they presented on the spectrum. Now there's a lot more. And so I ended up promising myself I'd write every day for a year. And I ended up writing for about 3 years, over 1,000 pages on my blog. And then that eventually turned into a book. And that all organically evolved into me being blessed, very fortunate to connect with thousands and thousands of unique and wonderful individuals around the world, even having people fly out to my home as far as Australia to meet them. And I couldn't have asked for a better outcome. My diagnosis literally changed my life, and I'm continuing to do a lot of advocacy work, particularly with autism as it relates to the workplace, autistic people in the workplace environment, inclusion and equity, and so forth.
So that that doesn't even do everything justice that you've been doing. And you know, we were talking about like some important questions beforehand that were great to address, and I feel like you've addressed a few of those. So one that I want to jump to is that you've done so many things. You've written articles, you've published a book, Everyday Asperger's. You are a professional in multitude of areas, right? You're a parent. You have so many things going on. But you know, this transition from student to professional, this is something that all students struggle with. It's hard, right? You go through your whole life in school, and school's predictable. And then when you get into, you know, the world outside of school, it's not predictable. It's very ambiguous. Mm-hmm. And all of our students struggle with that, not just our autistic or neurodivergent students. Can you tell us what helped for you? What were some roadblocks and what were some of the lessons you learned?
Sure. We're each on such different journeys, and a lot is going to be dependent on our parents or guardians and where we live in the world and our genetics and upbringing and so forth, our community supports. For me, it was a lot different. I didn't know I was on the spectrum. I write about this in my blogs and book, and I went to a lot of different people asking questions, from reverends, priests, psychologists, psychiatrists, hypnotists, you name it, probably 20 different people throughout my teens and in my 20s, trying to understand why I didn't seem to fit in, why there didn't seem to be a place for me. It was really, can't believe I'm tearing up. It was a really difficult time for me, and so high school for me was an extension of that. I did not look up when I was in high school from the ground. And I remember asking my mother, I'm afraid to look up off the concrete and make eye contact with people at the college. I used to go from bathroom to bathroom and hide. And I had my favorite egg salad sandwich every day from the cafeteria. And I had a lot of characteristics and traits of being on the spectrum, but I didn't know. So for me, I didn't really develop those coping mechanisms until probably in my late 20s, 30s of adapting to the way of the world, because my brain is unique and not typical like many of us that are listening out there. So I wanted to share that because I'm coming from a little bit different perspective. I didn't have those tools. So anybody that's on this call, they're already eons ahead of me because they have the tools and they have the support and they have you and they have so much literature and they have inspiring advocates that are their age. and we have people across the gender spectrum, across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum now, whereas when I first discovered I was on the spectrum, it was typically just one, young Caucasian male in tech. And now we know that there's so many different ways that autism presents. So as far as what I would suggest and what I say to people is get to know who you are, find out about what in you shines, value yourself as a person, learn to love who you are just the way you are. And for any of the parents and guardians out there and support people, to foster that innate beauty within the autistic person, that there's not a deficit, that there's nothing wrong with them, that we are uniquely different and in some ways more alike than different, because many of us have challenges, many of us have neurodivergent conditions, etc. So it's hard to say. I think each individual would be a different plan, a different goal of what they need, but finding your tribe, first finding yourself and then finding your tribe. And I have tons of resources on my website. And there's a whole section on advocacy, so I'd encourage people to go and look there for links as well.
And your website, that's the My Spectrum LLC website, is it right?
Yeah,
My Spectrum
Carrie,
Suite.
Yeah, it's My Spectrum Suite, and suite is spelled like an office building, but you can also CUITE, myspectrumsuite.com, but you can also find me Asperger's Girls on Twitter, Marcelle Ciampi on LinkedIn. You can Google Samantha Kraft and Asperger's or autism, and it'll pop up. And I'm always open to new friendships, new connections. I try to respond to everybody who contacts me, unless they're a troll.
Thank you for putting that link in the chat box there too. I'm like, my ADHD brain is like going wild. I got like all these screens, and I'm
Carrie's
like,
doing that. Carrie's my great friend, and she's been at Ultranauts for 3 years, and she's in the chat doing that.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. So we have Carrie and Christina working hard over here on all of this too. So Marcy, I'm going to take a left turn on this question, because this is something I know you and I have talked about, and I've seen you talk about it. And I think it's important for people listening to hear, whether they are students or parents or clinicians or staff or faculty or whoever, college, regardless, like college for, 18, 19, 20 something, it's a coming of age experience, and you're really learning a lot about who you are. Like it can be a very challenging experience for everybody. And there's a lot of research about, the sense of belongingness and how impactful that sense of belongingness is. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I know you know as well, is the impact of autistic students having autistic adults in their lives who are like mentors and professionals. Can you talk about why that is important?
It is so essential. As an example, where I work at Ultranauts, we have a job coach who happens to be my personal and professional partner, David. And he is not only trained, he has a master's in divinity, so he's not only trained in counseling and coaching, but he's autistic. And knowing myself and other people that are on the spectrum, knowing that we can reach out to someone that not only understands the book smarts of autism, the knowledge, but also has the wisdom and the heart of having that lived experience of being on the spectrum. The communication is so much easier when I talk to other autistic people, because I don't have to explain who I am. I don't have to explain why I'm presenting differently, whether it's stimming, stuttering, looking away, walking back and forth, what have you, whether it's branching off into all different directions when I talk and circling back. I like to say squirrel. I don't have to explain what I'm doing, and I don't have to apologize for who I am as a human being. And when I'm talking to another autistic people, I feel seen, heard, valued, understood, and they can understand my frustrations and struggles, whether that's my coexisting conditions such as dyslexia, dyspraxia, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. They can understand my struggles and challenges in a unique way that other people can't, that haven't been through it. With that said, I also know that neurotypical, non-autistic people and professionals, two of my best friends are neurotypical, I like to say that, can have extreme compassion and extreme understanding as well. So having a combination, I usually rely on my autistic friends in the community. It's not unlike me on Facebook to post to thousands of people, this is what happened, what do you think? I rely on my autistic people to help me explain the neurotypical world a little better from the views of an autistic person. And I rely on my neurotypical friends to explain the neurotypicals from the neurotypical perception. So I rely on both sides. I don't think one is more essential, but I do think it's vital and essential to have at least one role model in your life, whether that's a peer or someone that you strive to be like, or has lived a life like I have a longer life, whatever that autistic person looks like, that can make all the difference in the world. One quick story to tell you the power of this, the power of autistic community. I started a Facebook group 8 years ago under my pen name, Samantha Craft, and a couple years ago, a young gentleman contacted me. I usually get connections from people daily, and asking me for help because he felt suicidal and very much alone and isolated. And there I go again, tearing up. And
tears are welcome. Tears are welcome.
I posted on my Facebook community page. There's a young man, or I don't even think I said young, I just said there's an individual out there who needs support. If you're willing to be a Facebook friend with this person, please let me know and put your name below. And within 24 hours, I can't remember now, but it was something like 79 people had responded, I'm here for you, I'm here, connect. And we have moved away from this so much in our society, where cultures, families used to live together. There was the community faith house, there was the clubs, especially now with COVID. We've moved so far away from that unit of connection and support where you could go to your aunt next door, your grandma down the street. And it's essential that we bring that back, not only for autistic people, but for everybody on the planet who's struggling from isolation or what have you, sickness. And so building those communities and those places for safe, mature discussions and support are very important. I hope I answered your question.
Oh, you answered the question beautifully and more, Marcy. Thank you for sharing all of that with all of us. Another left turn for me, because you're saying so many things that has my mind just like racing. There's just so much here.
It's hard to live inside here.
I say the same thing, which, you know, is something to be said too. It's one of the great things that I've enjoyed having a conversation with you. And, you know, here's a plug here, a few plugs for some of the things going on. Ultranauts, the organization where Marcy works, is also part of the career fair portion at the other half of this. By the way, students, you can still book your appointments, your meetings with the employers up until 3 p.m. today. And Ultranauts is talking to everyone, not just for that one job that they posted.
Go meet Carrie and Heather. Carrie has a son on the spectrum. She's a sweetheart. I love her to death. And Heather I've met in person, adorable, so super smart. She has a degree, a doctorate degree. She's a doctor, and she's on the spectrum, and they're both here to meet anybody who wants to learn about Ultranauts today.
Y'all better go talk to Dr. Heather over at Ultranauts. And Heather also has told me that she was a college advisor for 10 years, so she
Carrie
understands.
was a college advisor, yeah. We've got some high caliber people over at Ultranauts.
And, you know, organizations like Ultranauts, and it also our sponsor for today, SAS, who has been an amazing partner for everything that we do over here in the Career Development Center with the Students Moving Forward program, and specifically Danielle Pavliv. Thank you very much, Danielle. Danielle sponsored our first summit that we had last fall and sponsored this year's summit too. Danielle and I have presented at 2, 3, I don't remember the number, national conferences about the importance of increasing neurodiversity, specifically looking at autistic students for roles and hiring and changing the hiring process to help remove some of these biases from there. So now that I got those plugs, I almost out the way, they're important, but they were in my mind. And, you know, it's 2020.
I'm terrible at promoting. I always joke that I'm always promoting Steve Silberman's book, Neurotribes, and holding it up and forgetting to bring my own book. I like a lot of people on the spectrum do not like self-promotion and selling myself, which just makes it very difficult to get a job.
It does.
The combination of the extreme transparency and honesty and childlike joy, and sometimes this exuberance and high bursts of energy with the other combinations of not being able to sell yourself and wanting to be humble can be very difficult. I just actually really pumped up my LinkedIn profile, and then I asked somebody yesterday, I'm like, does it sound humble enough? It's like, I don't understand. How can I sell myself and be humble? These social rules are so confusing still at my age, you know.
Right.
I still need a book of, I'm actually coming, as I grow older and growing my gray hair out, as I grow older, I'm realizing that it's not just autistic people, that most adults really don't understand the social rules and why we're doing what we're doing.
Thank you.
And I think that autistic people and other neurodivergent people, ADHDers, dyslexic, dyspraxics, what have you, I think we're going to change that. I think we're going to change that paradigm. And we're going to we already are creating a space where people can be more transparent and honest and frank with loving intention. I think that's essential. I don't think that having a neurodivergent condition or profile gives you the excuse to be rude or mean or inconsiderate. I think we can all learn to be kind and polite and create those places for discussion. I had a really interesting thing happen I want to share really briefly with you. Yesterday, I posted, or day before yesterday, I posted a video from someone from IBM, and they had created about autistic people. And this is the power of safe places and the power of autistic voices and our supporters. And I posted it with loving intention, just like, what do you all think of this? Because I was mixed, didn't know, this is representing autistic people from a large corporation. And the overall impression was, it's a lot better than ones that have been out there before as far as representing us as a people and a culture, but there's room for improvement, as there always is with any type of social justice movement. And what a few key leaders at IBM did is, instead of ignoring it and not being part of that conversation, they joined in the thread. And they took our feedback, and they're going to change the video to represent autistics across the spectrum, different ages, different colors, different abilities. That's the power of being able to meet together and have mature discussions and being willing to listen and not letting our egos get in the way. And I told them that was the very best branding they could possibly do. And so that's what I mean by systemic change that's happening because of neurodivergent voices and our supporters, like those that are out there today. I just thought that was a very inspirational story.
It is. I saw some of that thread, and I think I see someone in the chat box talking about that as well. Oh, there are so many different angles that I would like to go on of all these things that you said and some questions that we had talked about. There was one thing that stuck out into my mind. I realized I had forgot my earlier thought that I was saying with this, but it was you were touching on the unspoken rules, right? Mm-hmm. And we all can acknowledge that there's a lot of ambiguity and confusion around unspoken rules. And it's not unknown that certain groups of people get judged in a more harsh manner when it comes to not fulfilling these unspoken rules, right? And we can have misconceptions and these other things about everything, right? And so right now we're in a global pandemic, right? We're doing this virtually, which also has showed me that should be a virtual component always going forward, but we're not in person meeting. There's all these other things. This is hard for everybody, right? This is bringing a lot of stress for everybody. And oftentimes when I have staff and faculty and whoever who ask about, like, what are some things that we can do to better connect with our autistic students? Like, what do they need? I'm like, they need the same thing that all of our students need. It's just tends to be a little exacerbated sometimes because of sensory issues or isolation and really it comes down to like a misunderstanding of just what it means to be autistic. So I am getting to the question. So
you think like I do. So we can communicate so well. We just go on these roller coasters and then we circle back to where you got on. So that's
right. Which is why I really enjoyed talking to you. Like, I haven't had to be super mindful of like, oh, okay, Wes, I'm rambling, I'm doing these other things. There's a level of acceptance, right? And that's part
a
of
social rule. Why can't we ramble? Maybe there is a lot to be said with a flow of consciousness of what people can get out of that. Right. Instead of having to have these strict structures, these rigid ways of being that we've been told are the only way to be. And I hear what you're saying. You've talked about the interview process. We've talked about getting a job, selling yourself, and now you're moving into more of what can we help autistic people? How can we help them as professionals? And I'm 100% agreeing with you, is treat us like human beings, like any other human being. What I teach when I go out and do webinars and presentations and so forth, it's so funny, I always say that, like, well, I'm doing one now, but I was, anyhow. What I'd like to say is, in having known hundreds of thousands of people, being privileged to have that honor to meet all different sorts from all different walks of life, we all have struggles. We all have insecurities. We all have deep hurts. Some of us have dysfunctional home lives. Some of us came from poor socioeconomic status, like I did. Some of us have been discriminated against for all different types of reasons. And I think the key difference between autistic people and non-autistic people, and not all, this is not a blanket statement, right, but for me personally, is if I was to be carrying a basket of all the hurts I've experienced in my life, it would be filled to the rim from all different directions. From the struggles with dyslexia, my coexisting conditions, to being bullied, being a victim of predators, which is very common for autistic people, from being ostracized. I actually had someone come into the classroom when I was in high school and stand in front of the science teacher and say, "You're dead after school," and they pointed to me. And going to a school counselor when I was in high school and saying, "Something's wrong. I can't read, I can't remember, I can't process, I can't make friends," and them saying, "You're too pretty and too smart to have any trouble." So I think autistic people have a lot more they're carrying in their basket of being not seen and heard, not valued for who they are as a person. And it just goes back to common decency. Don't create the inferior, superior constructs of they and we. Use we, bring us into the conversation. Don't assume that one is a teacher and one is a student. I wrote about that on my blog and in my book. Meet us in an equal place, regardless of our age. We have a point of view, we have a perception, we have important things that we want to share. Right. And come to us with a non-deficit, non-medical model of autism, and as a identity first, a culture first, a human being first approach. And please don't have events without us because then it becomes the we. It doesn't become the we, it becomes the they. And I want to shift that from the they conversations to the we. And if you're attending something like I attended something recently, an Autism at Work event, it was just they after they after they. And then that creates discrimination. It creates separation. It creates isolation. And so bringing us to the table, bringing us to the conversation, and approaching us like you would approach anybody else. And of course, getting rid of all those stereotypes. You know, there's a double empathy theory, more than likely, and I can have empirical evidence in talking to over 10,000 people one-on-one that we have too much empathy.
Yeah.
And maybe not too much empathy. Let's get rid of the two. Maybe we have the right amount of empathy. And we're trying to fit into a world where there's not enough empathy.
I mean, in 2020, can we all agree that we need more empathy? I think, and you mentioned humility earlier, like we all need more humility and empathy and the ability to see what other people are going through and not just look at the world through your lens only. And I can attest to so many of those things you mentioned, because through me working with the students and students moving forward and our professional advisory board, we have, I forget how many, I think like maybe 6 or 8, I don't remember the number, but we have local professionals who are openly autistic, and they are amazing, and they help to advise me and make suggestions for the program that we've run, and also help to mentor the students. And it was really from me listening to them and listening to the students, realizing that I needed to embrace my own neurodivergent identity. And it's been eye-opening, right? And so if we really believe that community matters, because it does for everybody, and I think we really see that in this time when so many things have been stripped away, that, you know, we all rely on each other. And this is not like, I want to be really clear on this, like for everyone listening, like, you know, programs like Students Moving Forward, companies like Ultranauts, and, you know, the internship program at SAS, and all the employers who are at the career fair, this is not charity. This is not a charity thing. This is about doing what needs to be done. I call it removing.
It's also not a commodity thing. It's not about the bottom line. It seems like it's either one extreme or the other. The charity, they're inferior, or the bottom line, they're superior. And again, that's creating separation. It really should just be because we're human beings with potential like any other human being. And I don't want to be seen as a token thing that's going to help a business do better. And I don't want to be the poster child for an initiative so that a company can brand their image. I don't want that. And I know a lot of autistic people don't want that either. And what I've explained to some of the key leaders at our company years ago, and thankfully they're just very good at listening to some of the cultural concerns of autistic people, is just replace it with any other minority. Replace it with the LGBTQ. I always get it messed up because of my dyslexia plus. I think I have an I and A at the end now. Replace it with person of color. Replace it with women. And if you wouldn't do it for that minority, then please don't do it for autistic people. If you wouldn't put all, if I may say black, if you wouldn't put all black candidates in a room and interview them while all the other races are outside the room, then don't do it with autistic people. If you wouldn't have a panel about women when it's all men talking about it, then don't do it. Move away again from that deficit model of a diagnosis of a disorder and into a cultural model, because that's where we're headed. That we have a strong voice of millions of autistic people. It is a culture now. So I would ask everyone to treat us like members of a marginalized minority and replace it. And once you start replacing it, you see some of the inequities and the unfair practices and the discrimination. And I do want to say that with Ultranauts, things that we do at the company might be things that other people can do at academic settings and universities and so forth. having coaches that are actually on the autism spectrum. Like you mentioned, you have some people that you work with that are identified as autistic. We have community meetings once a month where we talk about what's working and not working at the company. And it's a chance for everybody to meet together online. They can text, or they can speak aloud, or they can private message somebody about what's working and what's not. And then that information is gathered and brought to the key leaders. So those are types of things that can be employed in any type of setting, any type of environment. Also, we're having monthly team forums led by an autistic person about what is the climate of the world right now. I mean, I live south of Seattle, Washington, so you can imagine we got hit by the wildfires, the COVID. We were the epicenter of the COVID at the start. Right. We have the social justice protests, and of course now we all have the elections, the debates. So having a place where we're gathering right now is so essential, just to talk about how we are, not just, but to talk about how we are managing with these very trying and challenging times. I'm stating that to say that if we could get together and share more about how we are each coping and how we're each supporting one another, we can develop more tools for everyone. And again, this isn't for autistic people, this is for everyone. Putting inclusive practices throughout the workplace, throughout the university. So what is good for an autistic person is good for everyone. Think about introverts and people that have had trauma. They need to feel safe, and they need to be heard, and they need to be supported as well.
Yeah, introversion is just as great as extroversion. And a lot of my friends and colleagues never believe that I'm introverted, because I can be very outgoing, but that is really my own masking behavior, is growing up Black and predominantly white environments, right? And so just like my autistic students have masking behavior to demonstrate neurotypical traits, or whatever you want to call it, like other groups have that. And I really appreciate you saying that. There was a question, or a kind of a question and comment that I saw in some of the registration forms that I think really applies to some of the stuff that we're saying here. And I would love to get your input on it so everyone could hear. And someone was talking about they're a parent of a young autistic college student, and they were talking about, how can we motivate our students to quote unquote do college and have like drive and to stay on task. And when I first hear that question, I'm like, well, this is real. I think that's something that like neurodivergent students
my youngest son is not autistic, and he's struggling, where my autistic son had no problem in college. So
right.
Yeah, I think that's a universal issue that all parents have for many children. How do we drive them? And I know you have a background in counseling, and there's probably 100 different things we could talk about that would encourage and drive people to do their best, perform their best. I would say off the cuff, if that's the right saying, I would say off the top of my head that having those real honest discussions and creating, again, it goes back to just creating this safe place in the home where we can sit down and say, what's going on? How are you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? Where are your blockers? I've had a lot of frank discussions with my youngest son about, well, is for university what's right for you? And he's struggling. We're thinking he might have some dyslexic issues as well. He has another diagnosis in addition. And so I don't want to give too much information. It's not about him. But so sitting down and talking with my son, frankly, about what's happening and how can I support you. I think it's important too that we, as a parent, at least for me, groom parents differently. I wrote, in the second book that I co-authored, I wrote the chapter on parenting. And ironically, I used to teach parenting classes before I was a parent, which I never would recommend. Why they hired me to do that, I do not know. I think as a parent, it's essential that we realize that our children's timelines might be a little different than ours, and they might be developing at a different pace, a different rate. When I was homeschooling my middle son, who's on the spectrum, he told me one year, he said, "Mom, I don't want to write anymore. I just can't write."
Mm.
And so I went out of my teacher mode, because I used to be a school teacher, elementary and middle school teacher. I went out of my teacher mode, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to listen to my child. What is he telling me here? I said, okay, for the next year, I just want you to read as much as you can, because that's how you learn to write, is by reading. And one of the ways. And so he did. And as I said, he graduated with a degree in editing and writing. Who would have thought that many years later? But I allowed him to go into his comfort zone and for him to drive his own life. And I released my fears of having to control where that's going to be and what that outcome turned out to be. So as much as I can release my fears of parenting and what the future is going to be, because that's what anxiety, stress is. Anxiety is worrying about the future and how we're going to control those outcomes, and if we'll have the tools to do those outcomes. So as much as I can relieve that stress and anxiety of a parent and give more power to my child to let them have control of their life, that empowers them to do better, perform better, to feel trusted, to feel confident in who they are as a being. So I don't know if I made much sense there, but that's how I approach it. And again, everyone has very distinct individual parenting styles, but that's what has worked in our household. And all three of my sons graduated on the same day this year.
Awesome. Awesome. So there's a lot there. Mm-hmm. And this was also some things that I heard in some of the registration questions and comments. Within that, what are things that, whether it's you were talking about parents or people who work at universities or employers or whoever, what are some things that we can do to help promote self-advocacy for our autistic students?
Go on to, well, again, my website hasn't specifically self-advocacy links. I spent a good week a while back ago when I was doing a talk on self-advocacy, finding the best links I could find. Go to find some links, research what is advocacy, what does it even mean, what does self-empowerment mean, then go to some of the groups that are out there that promote self-advocacy or some of the key leaders in the autism community. Learn about how to become empowered, what they're doing, their stories. I mean, with technology today, there's YouTubes on it, there's articles on it, there's blogs. My website lists over 100 different blogs by autistic people. So go to the source, see how other people are empowering themselves. Come to events like this that have people that are talking about these issues, and begin to figure out what are your strengths, what are things that you can improve upon, and how can you tap into those strengths to be your more authentic self. If you're a writer, you can get paid to write on the art of autism. You can write articles in the Autism Parenting magazine, The Mighty. If you are a speaker, you can create your own YouTube channel. If you are someone who likes to create community and safe places, you can start having online groups, and hopefully when the global health crisis is over, in your home or in a park, you can form communities. So tap into your comfort zone, your learning style, your skill set, and do what fills you, do what energizes you, what makes you feel better about you and gives you more and more energy, and steer away from things that decrease your energy and where you don't have enough spoons left at the end of the day. So do things that you are able to acquire more and more spoons instead of give away your spoons. I used to have, before COVID, a gathering here in my home once a month for women or those who identify as females coming to, so what I mean is the gender spectrum, coming to my home and supporting each other and talking with one another. So just doing what makes you feel empowered will empower other people and will empower yourself. And I live from the core foundation of serving and giving. And if you go back and read other leaders from past centuries, that's a lot of their philosophies as well. One of my favorite books is by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh, it's a great book.
Just going to the core of what it means to live this life. What is your purpose here? What is your life meaning? Whatever faith you have or no faith, just how do you want to be the best human being that you can be? And not a better human being, because you already are enough, but the best version of yourself. That encompasses empowerment, striving to be your best person, and having that humility and that know-how to push your ego aside and say, all right. Someone today on Facebook said, I really want to share your list. So I wrote a list of traits of females with Asperger's 8 years ago, when very little was known about Asperger's and how it presented in females. And now it's become outdated because more people are moving away towards the language, in America at least, of autism on the spectrum, autistic. And so someone said, can you please change the title? I don't want to share it because it has that word in it. And I just cringed. I'm like, I have 1,500 pages with the word Asperger's. I'm not going to go back and change 1,500 pages. But I'm like, all right, I can go with this. I can put my ego aside. And I felt like God, my higher power, was saying, they listened to you about that video yesterday, and they listened to that feedback, and they're going to adjust that They're going to adjust that video based on yours and others' feedback. And you don't want to change a title on a list. So I had to give up that attachment a little bit of Asperger's. And so I am going to be changing the title of the name of the list, of the trait list. And so it's about having that humility and being able to push aside your ego and being open to what others are saying as well.
Oh, there's again, a very relevant point for our current point in time about putting ego aside and the humility piece as well. I want to go back a little bit. There's so many things to unravel, and we still have a good amount of time here, but I don't know if we really got to talk about all of the things you really do, like professionally in your role at Ultranauts too. I think
I'm just checking the number of participants and making sure they're not dropping off like flies, because I've been talking a long time. Do you think anyone out there might want to take like a 5-minute stretch or go to the bathroom?
We will have a little intermission right when you're done we'll transition to the student awards, which we're getting close to that point. I think we've been talking for about 45 minutes. Also, if anyone has questions, I've been trying to keep an eye on the chat box and stuff too. But if anyone has questions, feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A thing.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm actually going to have my first ever Facebook Live, because believe it or not, I do not like talking on the computer. On the 14th, under my Samantha Craft page, and it's going to be a time for anybody to ask anything. And it's my way of giving back to the community and creating a safe place for discussion and meeting more autistic people. So you might see someone in the thread and say, I want to get to know them. I know not everybody's on Facebook. That's where I'm starting, and then I'll move it off of Facebook, especially after seeing the movie Social Dilemma on Netflix. Don't want to feed the algorithm there.
So I do think that we got into a good tangent, because you were willing to be really transparent and talk about your own experiences, and I appreciate that, and I hope that the people listening do as well. I did want to just talk a little bit more about what you do actually in your job at Ultranauts. This is one of the reasons, It's one of the reasons why I like talking to you also is like, you know, someone with, you know, my ADHD energy takes me all over the place. I always have 15 million different things that I'm doing. And I feel very comforted talking to you when you were someone like that. We
It's
have a
funny,
question
yeah.
too.
You're very kind in the way you address me, and I appreciate that. And it's interesting that you said I was willing to be transparent. It's not like I have a choice. I think a lot of autistic people feel that way. There's so many times, you know, there's that cartoon of you sitting yourself in bed and all the thoughts and all the things you said during the day and what you shouldn't have said. And my girlfriend has just one of my best friends of 25 years. We used to teach together. She has dyslexia and she thinks she has ADHD as well. And she said that now my mind just went completely blank because I started thinking about our time together. Isn't that hilarious?
I started thinking about my family members who have the same things too. So
anyway,
there's a high rate of comorbidity.
It was a really good point, and maybe I'll remember it, maybe I won't, but that's that part of self-forgiving and just understanding my brain works that way. Sometimes it's like a choo-choo train, it's just going like a bullet, and then boom, it just stops. So we'll go back to what you were saying. So the willingness, you know, to be transparent, thank you so much. And was there a question there or something?
You know what? I was about to actually get to a question, but I see that we got a question from Magnus Hedemark.
Hey, Magnus.
We all love Matt. Magnus is one of our members of our professional advisory panel with the Students Moving Forward program, and he's so much appreciated and has really just become a great friend as well.
That's how I met you.
It is. I met Magnus through our sponsor, Danielle Pavlif from SAS, because I've really enjoyed partnering with Danielle and SAS, and she's been great about being very intentional about what we do. And she knew that I really wanted to get adult autistic professionals involved, and she was like, oh, you got to talk to Magnus. And then Magnus and I just clicked. I feel like we're kindred spirits over here. And then he's introduced me to you and so many other people, and it's the power of networking, right? And
yeah, and I do remember what your question was. You wanted to know more about Ultranauts, so we can circle back to that after Magnus.
Okay, see that we're helping each other. It's iron sharpens iron over here.
I have my Post-it here where I can keep my notes.
Magnus said, what adjustment, he's reading our minds going to Ultranauts. What adjustments are Ultranauts making to help you and other autistic employees to feel included, welcome, and able to do your best work? What could other employers learn from this?
So Magnus needs to be here for any other future talks because he just very politely circled us back, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, he did. Thank you, Magnus. So I've been working with the company for 6 years, and when I first started there, we had 10 employees, and now we're over 90. And fortunately, I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound prideful, but fortunately they had an autistic person there. And that's what more companies need to do is have an autistic voice in the HR, in the recruitment, whether it's community management, recruitment itself, a VP position, what have you. And so because I was there from the start, I was able to bring in that autistic voice, as were a few of the testers, software testers we had at the time that were on the spectrum as well. And what we did at Ultranauts is created all our systems, all our procedures and processes with not only the general population in mind, but the autistic and those who present with similar profiles in mind. So all of our handbooks, like communication handbooks, Slack rules, mentoring programs, interviews, they're all written with best practices, not only for the typical population, but for the neurodiverse population. So for example, I love this part, when we do interviews, so on my website, I wrote a long article about why interviews don't work well if they're traditional interviews. But if you tailor interviews, they can work well and they can become a safe place for discussion and getting to know one another. And what we do with our interview process is in the very beginning, we explain that if we're comfortable, we will disclose that we're on the spectrum, or that we know someone on the spectrum, like Carrie has a son on the spectrum. And from there, that there is no need to disclose at all. It doesn't affect their standing in any way. And some people interviewing aren't autistic, so that's completely fine. It might be another type of neurodivergency or neurotypical. And at the start of the interview, we let them know that there's any time in the interview itself where they would like to pause and have us restate the question, give more examples, that they're welcome to, that there will be time at the end of the interview for questions. We also, I don't interview anymore myself, but what I used to like to say is if you're feeling anxiety at any point, you're welcome to reschedule. When this interview is over, feel free to email me if you want to add any further comments or something you forgot, or even just want to process how the interview went itself. I try my best when I'm interviewing and when I created those interview practices to bring that human element in there, to let the person know that this is an objective measure based 1 through 5 on a scale. If you do well, you're moving on to the next process. We're not trained to evaluate a person based on if it's someone we want to go hang out with after work. We're evaluating their skills.
Right.
In addition, we're not relying heavy on resumes. So someone might not have attended school, might not have finished school, and may have just as many strengths. I have many strengths in diversity and inclusion, and I never went to school for diversity and inclusion. Many of us have many skills that we never went to school for. Perhaps they were in a volunteer role or self-taught at home. So we're looking at the whole person and what they can bring to the culture and to the workplace and to the best outcomes for the organization and for the clients. We're not looking at the traditional resume and how well you can sell yourself, how well you can present. So candidates aren't being knocked down if they're stuttering or give too short of answers or give too long of answers or say something that might be considered inappropriate. We also never make judgment calls. We don't say this person talks too much or doesn't seem confident. How do we know that? And who are we to say that? So if we ever put anything down in an interview, we put presents as. So I might put presents as friendly, presents as knowledgeable, because that's not a judgment. That's what I'm perceiving that person as. So that's part of, and we also provide, we're going through a lot of transition right now. We try to provide as much upfront information about what to expect during our process, how long it will take, who you'll be speaking with, what are some of the questions we might ask you, and here are some resources. In addition, we work with vocational professionals, job coaches, university professionals, etc., to have some back and forth dialogue. That person might need a accommodation. They might want to have their whole interview done in text instead of aloud. They might want to have a video versus over the phone. We do most of them over the phone, so you don't have to be seen. In addition, once they are brought on into the company, it's a very inclusive environment. We're not making, here are the autistics, here are the non-autistics. We're not introducing people as, here's our new people from the autistic program. They're just another person who's been employed. They have a choice to disclose or not disclose. No one else is going to know whether or not they're on the spectrum unless they want that person to know. And that's essential. It's illegal and it's no one else's right to tell someone that someone's on the autism spectrum. And nor should it be on any of the hiring forms as well, unless that person specifically says they want it on there. We offer, we have daily surveys, so people can say how they're feeling about a specific subject, such as, do you feel lonely at work or not? We have weekly surveys put out by the CEO, co-founder, who reads every single one, every single week from every single employee, where it says, did you learn something? What did you appreciate about a colleague? And do you have suggestions for improvement? And then he reaches out to those people who have made the suggestions for improvement, and he'll actually have meetings or talks to those people. We have annual surveys. We haven't had one recently, but we need to get back into that. But of course, there's been a lot of changes with everybody right now. An annual survey that that focuses on key benchmarks for improvement, key indicators, what we want to improve on as a holistic company. So what we have is a systemic approach where the supports are embedded in everything we do. So it's not an autistic program. It's for everybody. And that, again, gets rid of that inferior-superior construct. We don't have neurotypical people looking at the autistic people thinking they're better than or less than. And when you start putting the focus on how great autistics are and we're bringing them to the company, isn't this super? What about all those other people that are autistic? What is it doing to their self-esteem and their hard work? And why are they being recognized? And why are they being promoted? Let's promote everybody. Let's talk about how we are as a team. And we use the word cognitively diverse because we're all cognitively diverse.
Yes.
As you said, we're all neurodiverse as well. But there is a fine line because neurodiversity is a cultural movement.
Yes.
And it is about neurodivergent people being heard and being given equity, fairness, and opportunity and a voice. And so we separate a little bit to cognitive diversity so we can honor that neurodiversity movement. Well, so you can see we're looking at the complexities and we're looking at the bigger picture of how to really be inclusive. Because once you start pointing out one type of minority in a workplace, that's not inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
That's excluding everybody else. So I'm happy with what we've done and what we're continuing to do. We have growing pains like any other company. We're continually changing our procedures and processes. In fact, next week we're meeting with the CEO to talk about one of the current programs and how we can make that better. The key is having leaders who are willing to hear that feedback and having a community that is willing to support one another, including those people who don't want to speak up and who have PTSD or generalized anxiety or trauma. When I surveyed autistic people in my network, the number one reason they left the workplace was bullying. So we need to think about those people coming into either an educational establishment or a workplace who are coming with that trauma, and how can we give them a voice? And so actually I told that to my CEO. I said, you know what? The same people are speaking up all the time. And it's these extroverted people that get their initiatives and their views heard. I said, what about us that don't want to speak up because of our trauma? And it doesn't matter how many times you ask us or how many ways you tell us we can, we don't want to. We can't. And so he said, well, let's meet next week and talk about how we can give those people that are more vulnerable a voice. So that's what's happening at Ultranauts, is we're having really tough, honest conversations about the cultural climate continually, and how can we provide those resources for people so that they can do their very best.
That was so good. Thank you very much. And I hope for the students and alumni and everyone else who is listening, who's attending the career fair, this is why you need to book meetings with Ultranauts as a company. Like you hear this very intentional strategy that they have, which I love. We have just a few minutes left, Marcy.
And let me just say that they can reach out to me at any time through my direct email as well, which is Marcelle, MARCELLE @ultranauts.co. And I answer direct emails, and when I can't answer it, I pass along a resource, or I'll pass you along to somebody else who can. And that's another thing we pride ourselves on, is that human-centric, one-on-one person approach where you're not talking to a computer. We have enough of that right now in our world.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. I was going to ask someone could put it in chat. Thank you, Carrie. Carrie and Christina have been keeping us on track over here, and Christina's been trying to help to point out these questions to me. So we just have like a few more minutes. Really, we're supposed to cut it here, but I really do want to make sure these questions got addressed. So
I want to thank everybody for listening too, and it's been a lot we're talking about, and I apologize if I'm talking in circles or.
No apologies.
But I really appreciate, and I can always say, just take what you want from this, leave the rest behind, whatever resonates with you. Not trying to convince anybody of what we do is the right way or the
Right.
wrong way, but sharing stories, so essential to share stories and experiences. That's how we connect.
Definitely, definitely. I was going to say hashtag team no apologies, because we're not apologizing. And in the nature of hashtags, we have a hashtag for our event, which I'm trying to point to it right over there. So for all of my Twitter and social media and LinkedIn folks, you can use that. So let me look at this question. So someone had said, thank you for this event. As a parent of a young man on the spectrum, this is a wonderful community. My question is there room for higher support needs individuals in this space and employment opportunities?
Not sure what their higher support needs. What does that mean? Is there room for employment, like for job coaches and counselors? What, do you understand the question?
I don't want to make assumptions. So for whoever asked that, if you could put some clarification, and we'll try to address that.
There's definitely a huge need for autistic coaches and autistic counselors. I have people reach out to me monthly asking, who can I go see, who is autistic, for counseling, for coaching, for understanding. I'm not sure if that's what they were asking, but there's a huge need for that. There's a huge need for that in many environments.
Here's another question. What would you say to autistic high schoolers as they prepare for careers and or college?
I teach a webinar on that.
Please follow Marcelle.
Yes.
She's a wealth of information.
So I do have some tips on my website. I do better in writing than I do in speaking sometimes because I have memory issues and dyslexia when I'm speaking aloud. So if you repeat the question for me, that will help me. What
would you say to autistic high schoolers as they prepare for careers or college?
Okay, so those are two different big things. So college, making sure you have a support system, making sure you have an agreement with your guardians or parents of a check-in system. I used to check in with my son the first year. Well, first I sat on his bed and cried for a month. But I used to check in and he went to the dorms and I would ask him frank questions like, how's your emotional state? Are you depressed? How are you feeling? Do you have enough support? How are your friends treating you? I wanted to know a full picture of his emotional, not his educational. That came second. I wanted to make sure that he felt safe, that he felt supported, that no one was teasing him or bullying him. And thank my lucky stars, thank God, he had a very positive experience. So that would be number one thing, is to make sure that that adult, that young adult, has a support network, has someone who's truly listening, truly caring about the concerns, not only from home, but where on campus. Who can they go to? Just because they're a counselor or an advisor doesn't mean they necessarily are going to have that synchronicity and feel connected. So making sure they feel connected with that person, just because they have a title doesn't mean that that's going to be the right fit for them. Maybe they need to switch that counselor. What type of activities? I used to talk to my son about what type of activities he felt comfortable going to. So there wasn't a pressure to go to all these different functions. Just let's pick one. What's the one that you can do and still have enough energy at the end of the day? I recognized as well that his sleep patterns were going to be different than other students there. So talking about, was he eating enough? Was he sleeping enough? How was he getting along with his roommate? So those are lots of variables when you're starting the college life. Definitely asking for accommodations if you qualify for them, or comfortable disclosing if you need those, whether it's extension on projects or test time, where you sit in class, what types of sensory things might help you with the environment, sensory improvements. As far as the workplace, that's huge. I wrote 200 pages on that topic. In preparing for the workplace, I have an article on LinkedIn and on my website of whether or not to disclose or your condition. And that's a huge part. Are you going to disclose? And what are the reasons you should or shouldn't disclose personally for you. So that article itself talks about, if you're going to disclose, make sure that you have that confidence in yourself and a support system if you're going to, in case you might face discrimination or bullying or assumptions or stereotyping after you disclose, which is very common. I experienced it over and over after I disclosed. Had the highest marks as a school teacher, never questioned my authority, never questioned my judgment. As soon as I disclosed I had autism, in other workplaces, those things were questioned. So it's important to know the pros and cons of disclosing, of when to disclose, or if you want to partially disclose. Perhaps you're not comfortable disclosing that you're on the spectrum because you don't want to be stereotyped against. So you could disclose that you have ADHD or dyslexia, a coexisting condition, and get those supports. So that's just, I mean, that's just the first part. You can see how complex this topic is. Mm-hmm. That's just whether or not to disclose. Then there is the supports through the hiring process, the supports through the onboarding process, the supports once you're starting on the job. So we could talk on that for a couple hours, but I would say getting that disclosure part down is essential, because that's going to be how you get any supports if you need those supports. And for some of us, it's essential to have those supports on the job. So having those discussions. And then there's just the logistics of how you're going to get to work and who you're going to process and talk to about communication at work. If you've been confused by something someone said, how do you approach your manager? How do you file a grievance? How do you stand up for yourself? What do you do if you're being bullied? Boundary setting. And I have on my blog, Everyday Ask Me, some articles about boundary setting. It's a very complex topic and subject, but those are just some of the highlights I would say come to mind.
Thank you, Marcy. I probably let us go a little bit longer than I should have, because
Yes.
This has been such a great conversation. And I want to make sure we move to our next piece here. And I couldn't get this slide up earlier, but this was your picture and your introduction. So I'll put that up while we transition. But Marcy, I just wanted to thank you for being here with us this morning and talking to us about all of this stuff, and just engaging and sharing these topics. And for the students and everyone who's a part of the career fair that starts at 1:30, there is the link should be in the Career Fair Plus app. There is a Zoom space that you can access, and Marcy Magnus Hedemark, who had a great question earlier and is one of our professional advisory board members for the Students Moving Forward group, and myself will be in that Zoom room, and you can come in and talk to Marcy and Magnus. And
yeah, Marcy's me. I was like, who's Marcy? Yeah,
Marcy's
I know,
I keep going back and forth.
Marcy's my nickname, so I'll be. I thought you were saying someone's name was Marcy Magnus, and I was like, wow, that's really coincidental. Yeah, I'll be in there with Wes and Magnus. Looking forward to that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And with that said,
what's coming up right now?
What's coming up is the student award presentation. So why don't we take a quick break? We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. So we're behind, but it's 12:25, right? I mean, 12:25 right now. We'll take a quick 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and do a student award presentation where we have 2 awards, and then we'll transition to our professional and student panel, which there'll be more time, more opportunities for questions as well.
And thank you, everybody, so much. And thank you, Wes, for having me here today and reaching out to me, and just creating this space for everyone to learn and grow. And I look forward to keeping in touch with some of you out there, and you as well, Wes.
Thank you, Marcelle. Appreciate it. All right, everybody, we will be back in at 12:30 in 5 minutes with the student award presentation. So take a quick break because we were talking for a while. Okay, we are gonna start coming back here because it's 12:30 and like I said, we're behind. So for the students who actually have some early meetings at the career fair, if you have to leave a little early once we get into the panel, that's fine. We'll probably extend it a little past 1:30 so everyone can still listen who doesn't have an earlier meeting, just to give you a heads up on that since we're running a few minutes behind. What I want to do now is present the award. This is the Excellence in Leadership Award. This is the first year we are doing this. I look forward to continuing to do this. And the reason of this award is to give students in our state of North Carolina acknowledgement and recognition for some of the great work that they're doing, in addition to just being a student and working and just life in general. There are two awards that we gave out, both to students here in North Carolina. And the first award, or the first person that we're going to talk to today, is Ellie May. Ellie, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Great. Can everybody else hear too? All right. So, Ellie, thank you for being here. I've gotten to know Ellie over the past year because she came out to the summit last year, which is where I first met Ellie, and came up to me and introduced herself and told me about all that she is doing and asked if she could reach out to me later to ask some questions. And I was like, yeah, of course. And Ellie came up with this organization called the Autistic Students Alliance at East Carolina University. And we had a series of conversations over the year as Ellie and some of her team tried to understand what they needed to do to get this organization off the ground and what its identity should be and all these things, in addition to earning a bachelor's of science in computer science, right? And so, I mean, that's not, I mean, no degree is easy, but that's obviously a very intense area. And so, there's all this great work that she was doing in addition to this to make sure that students' needs like her own were being addressed and respected. So, Ellie, could you tell everybody listening what is the Autistic Students Alliance at ECU?
Yes, so the Autistic Students Alliance is the first and only autism self-advocacy organization at East Carolina University. Our organization is ran entirely by autistic people for the benefit and the advancement of autistic people. We were founded around October of 2019, probably a little earlier, depending on how you want to look at it. We have a lot of different programs that we do. Everything from, we have an autism and careers program, which is a very minified version of what you're doing at Students Moving Forward. And we also do a lot of different stuff about explaining autism culture, as well as just general things that we think all autistic people should know to help other autistic people live a fulfilling life.
In the Autistic Students Alliance student organization program, however you want to frame it, I've seen a lot of the work that you've been doing, and it's great. And you've had speakers and you've had some other initiatives that you've been doing. Can you tell the employers and everyone else and other students listening what you need to help to grow the Autistic Students Alliance?
Yeah, so we have a lot of rather ambitious objectives, some of which we've had to sort of scale back on over the months to realize, okay, maybe we can't do this just yet, so we'll have to settle with something a little less, but we'll get to that later. So At the moment, one of the main things that's holding us back is that we have a lack of collaborators. Of course, we do have some people like you or like Magnus who are more than willing to help us establish those connections, but still we always are looking for more people to collaborate with to advance these projects. So currently next week, for example, we have Magnus and Haley Moss are going to be coming to ASA virtually, and they're going to be talking with us about what it's like to be an openly autistic professional. And so we're really looking forward to that. And by the way, that's open to everybody, not just if you're an ECU student.
Thank you. And for folks listening who don't know who Haley Moss is, she's an attorney, I believe in Florida, and
Yes.
is openly autistic and has written a book, and I think is writing more books, and also has been on Magnus's podcast that he has as well, or his vlog. Magnus does so many stuff, I can't keep up with him. So Ellie, is there anything else that you would like to say for everybody listening?
If you would like to find out about any of our events, projects, whatever, if you would like to join in, you can go to our website, autisticstudentsalliance.com. Students is plural. Or you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter, ASA_ECU. And also we have a Facebook page just recently, which is just Autistic Students Alliance. We also post meeting recordings occasionally on our YouTube channel, which is called Autistic Students Alliance.
Thank you so much, Ellie. You are doing great work. It's been an honor to get to know you. And could we see that award again, so we could just like show it and everybody gets to see the all right.
Is it in focus? Yeah. I was worried about the clip from the window.
And thank you to SAS, our sponsor, who pays for these things, because hashtag we are a state government.
Yes, thank you. It is very pretty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellie. And just so folks know, like, we are adapting to this virtual world, and Ellie was very patient with me as we tried to record a video to help things stay on time, and everything broke and it failed, and she was willing to come on here and do this live. So thank you, Ellie. We're going to switch now to the video that I have for our next person. So let me get that set and I'll show it to you. Hey everybody, I am here with another one of our first two recipients of the Excellence in Leadership Award from the North Carolina Autistic Career Summit. I have with us Kayla Smith. Hi Kayla, how are you today?
I am doing fine.
That's great. In 2020, we're doing fine. We're winning right now. Kayla, there's so much that you do. You are a student. You are a professional. You have a job. You also do a lot of advocacy work and just are great in a leadership capacity. Can you tell us why you created the Autistic Black Pride hashtag?
The reason I created the hashtag because not many people who look like me, on TV, books, you name it. And I thought about it for to kind of click when I did some little research, and it's kind of like give me like a wake up call, like, oh man, this how autism reflect. Even though autism said if at gender, race, sexual orientation, you name it, but you're not representing everybody in the community. It kind of like backfired. And that's why I create the hashtag, because I didn't want people to talk about the experience or or people who know someone who Black autistic, and so that we here, we exist.
That's right.
And, we deserve to exist. We deserve to be respected and not be diminished because the image we put out there and not reflecting it. We need to do better.
Kayla, the work that you do is really impressive because, like I said earlier, you're a student. You also have a job, and you're also doing all these things, not only online, but in person. And by the way, Kayla has like 10,000 plus followers on Twitter and all this stuff. Like, she's just amazing, and was a panelist at the very first Autistic Career Summit that we did last fall, in addition to that. But outside of the online stuff, Kayla, you also do some outreach events and some awareness events at the college that you attend. Can you tell us about those events that you created?
I started my first event at my school back in 2016 when I was the first year student at, graduated from high school and attended for Tech Community College, which I attend. And I in this club called African Better. It's like community service. It's kind of like the arm of student government association, and we have there and do events, volunteer, things like that, like go to blood drive or angel tree, things like that. Then I got the idea that I want to do an event in spreading autism awareness, and plus me learning the autistic community online helped me understand, autism, and wanted to spread awareness about autism. And then when I did my first event in 2016, then 2017, then I was supposed to have a third event, but it kind of backfired every time. So I had to take a year off and no longer in the club no more. It's kind of hard to get people get the event out, but it kind of got other responsibility and going to school at a time and made me frustrated. And I was like, why I'm doing this? But, yes, and even though at the time I chose autism awareness, but I did not realize at the time I had somebody problem with it, even though people are aware of autism, but not many accepting autistic people in person, or make what they see on TV make stereotype. And so I'm trying to make it a third, but it's supposed to happen, but it didn't. I will change to autism acceptance instead of autism awareness, because not people accept autistic people, not understanding. So how autism is, not being awareness or lack of understanding. So people will assume what they think of autism. So much want to make that change and let people know the difference.
That's a lot of work, and so you're a student, which I keep saying because I want people to understand that, it's hard enough to be a student and balance all these things in college, but you're also, just dealing with life and trying to advocate for, your right to be acknowledged and to be heard and for your voice to be lifted. And I think the work that you're doing is great, and I applaud you for it. And that's why I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to be recognized. Kayla, is there anything else that you would like to say to everybody?
I would like to say to everyone is I am honored to have this award, and I was kind of a little shocked that I got this award. I'm like, what? I was kind of shocked, I don't get me wrong. I love to have what, but I never wanted to think too selfish about myself, but and to other people in this world, whether in this event or people did not see the event, to let people know that there's someone who look like you, who identify being a Black autistic person, that you exist, and hopefully that you see someone who look like you, represented in the media, thing like that, so you don't feel isolated, like I'm the only person of color who has to be autistic. You're not alone. I thought about myself. I'm telling you something. You matter. Black disabled lives matter. We need more of us out there. You matter. Say the word. No matter where you go, spread that awareness. And don't let people tell you what you cannot do, because people will tell you that, and I don't want to believe in my own self. Don't stop believing yourself.
Thank you. We need to hear that, Kayla. Can we get to see that award one more time? Hey, here we go. Kayla, thank you. Thank you for everything that you do. I'm so honored to be able to get to know you a little bit over this past year, and for you to be one of our two first-time award recipients for the Excellence in Leadership Award. Thank you, Kayla, and take care. Okay, I think that we have everybody here for our panel. And so we're gonna, I'm going to hop up right in. Oh, I think I was having an issue with my mic. Oh, let's see. Can you hear me? Zoom is telling me that my mic isn't working. Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to keep this screen up here for a little bit just so everybody can see everybody's name. And I'm gonna let each of our panelists here introduce themselves, and we'll start from there. Let's start with Ellie, and we'll go in the order of the picture. So Ellie, Cameron, Gerald, Reagan, and Larkin.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Ellie. I am a computer science major. I'm a senior at East Carolina University, and I started the Autistic Students Alliance, originally based at East Carolina University. And I've interned at Credit Suisse over the summer, and I currently am a software developer for the College of Nursing at East Carolina University.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cameron Nelson. I am a senior associate software development engineer and test at SAS Institute. I recently got my master's degree in computer science at NC State in December 2019, and I've been working at SAS since January of 2020.
All right. Yes, my name is Gerald Parrish, and I am a community inclusion specialist at Alliance of Disability Advocates, which is a center for independent living based here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I also specialize in travel training, in which we train individuals with all different disabilities how to use public transportation. And I've been in this field for about over two and a half years.
Hello, my name is Reagan Anderson. I'm a senior here at ECU. I'm also in the fine arts major, and I'm very glad to be here. I don't really have much job experiences yet, but I did volunteer at the ASPCA, the animal shelter, during my time in high school. And that's pretty much it.
Hi, I'm Larkin Taylor Parker. I'm a public interest lawyer with a statewide practice. I do a mix of policy and litigation work. I grew up mainly in Durham and went to undergrad at Agnes Scott College and then law school at UGA.
I hope everyone watching can see that we have a diversity of occupations, right, that we're showing, because everyone has differences and interests in what they want to do. And sometimes the autistic community can be framed as only having interest or abilities in tech, and that's just simply not true, right? So I'm going to ask this question for anyone on the panel who wants to weigh in here. What has been the biggest obstacle for you in obtaining meaningful employment? Was there something or someone who helped you on your way, and how?
I guess I'll start. I think the biggest obstacle for me was less disability related than the inherent difficulty of the career path that I picked. Law is not easy to break into these days, and public interest jobs are desirable and competitive. The people who helped me along the way, interestingly enough, were mostly neurotypicals, some with a connection to disability, some with no connection to disability. There were people I had formed relationships with who were in law, and they told me everything that I really needed to know to navigate a pretty complex process. I think relationships are very important.
I agree with Larkin on the relationships. I would say my biggest obstacle was the fact that, well, for me, I was a bit of a late bloomer, and at least I consider myself a late bloomer when it comes to finding a job. When I was an undergrad at NC State, I didn't really look into, internships and whatnot. The internship procedure didn't really start until I was in graduate school. Mainly, that was because I try to prioritize my time at school before I prioritized the school before I dealt with anything in the workplace, mainly because of limitations and other constraints that kind of hindered me from dealing with having a job and doing work at the same, or doing schoolwork at the same time. Um, I mean, there's a lot of people that I considered that helped me out along the way of, where I am today. I can't obviously name all of them, but I would say the most recent person on my list would probably be Danielle Pavlev, who introduced me to the internship program at SAS when I was in graduate school. And I had a wonderful time in the internship program. And, it helped me get to a full-time position right after I finished my time in graduate school. And I'm currently kind of an advocate. I'm sort of a alumni advocate of the intern program at SAS, and to help other students or anybody in the internship program just kind of feel welcome and just feel welcome and be able to just kind of show their talent and their experiences. It was students moving forward. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Or who could go before? I can go ahead and go. Um, yeah, I would say one of the biggest obstacles was definitely, just, you know, obviously with the interviews and figuring out what I really wanted to do after, I graduated, that so I definitely regret, going through the you know, getting the internship, and I know I didn't have, like pretty much I didn't have any accommodations, while I was in college either. But so I didn't really get like into like I didn't really start to really advocate for myself until I actually went through vocational rehabilitation. And they helped me, get a job. They helped, they put me in touch with, with a job coach, and so I definitely had I definitely had success, working with a job coach, and helped me to get the right, jobs, because I know it took me maybe it might have took me maybe about 7 or 8 years, or I'll say about 6 years for me to find the job that I'm at now, because I know before that I was working, in a call center which was, it was just a very stressful experience for me. And, I definitely experienced, autistic burnout from that. And even going into where I'm at now it's like, of course, but it was good for me because, not only I had a good job coach, but the job coach happened to be a part of the board for the agency that I'm at now. And he introduced me to the executive director at the time, and the executive director was the one that provided me the opportunity, and I just accepted it, and the rest is history.
I would say for me as well, one of my bigger obstacles was identifying the need for self-advocacy in the application process. That wasn't a concept I was really familiar with at the time and so that whenever I sort of realized, okay, this is something that's okay for me to do, that was a major breakthrough for me. Was really understanding, like, okay, yes, it's okay to do stuff like, say, ask for accommodations in the interview process. And whenever I started taking steps like that, things got a lot better for me personally.
Autistic burnout for me is pretty much just like regular burnout, but except that like it kind of really, I don't know how to explain this, but let's see. Okay. So the way I experience the way I experience burnout in a way is that like I get very tired, I have trouble sleeping, or like I just feel like doing absolutely nothing. And it's basically like I just lose all motivation to like try to do my work, but I try to power through it. And it's kind of hard considering I also have ADHD and it's hard for me to focus. So I try to manage that by like trying to do stuff like relaxing, like doing stuff that I want to do before like doing my actual work, so I can like keep going. Like take a break for a minute, or like a day, like take a 1 day vacation. I don't know how it's like for anyone else, but I think that helps me the most.
Honestly, I would say, autistic burnout is actually something like, believe it or not, I've never actually heard the term before. So in retrospect of all the stuff that's been going on with me, I can definitely relate to that term on a bunch of different things. Um, I think that in my situation, I can lose some motivation sometimes. I may just feel basically just, can't think of the term. Yeah, I just don't think I can feel that. I don't feel that motivation. I don't feel that willingness to be able to work or help. Sometimes I just feel just kind of heavy and just tired and all that. Maybe it's and all that, but I have been able to kind of overcome these things by keeping myself, maybe just doing personal things for myself, things that I enjoy, maybe to take my mind off things, or if I have a lot of stress and a lot of things are coming up that I just can't get out of my head, the best thing to do is just for me to kind of walk away, just find something personal to do, maybe take a walk, or take a little power nap or something, just to kind of reboot your brain. um, but I guess the term can mean differently for a lot of people. So obviously how you describe autistic burnout is really up to you, but there are a lot of similarities that I would imagine people have that would relate to a lot of other people.
For me, in my experience, I found like the best way to avoid it is to, well, to me, it seems like the best approach to dealing with autistic burnout rather is through preventing it from happening in the first place. Because for me, it just sort of seems like once it happens, then you just have to ride it out. At least I haven't found a better way to deal with it yet. Um, so that being said, it's more of a matter of preventing it. So I found like a few weeks ago, I was pretty getting close to getting into like a autistic burnout type phase. And so what I did was I just what happened was I was spending way too much time on ASA stuff, and so I just pretty much diverted a lot of. It's like, okay, we can't do all of this stuff, so let's scale back a lot and try and sort of recoup and start back in a week. And that helped tremendously and prevented a state of autistic burnout. And yeah, it's just stuff like that to sort of, I guess, catch the problem before it becomes a problem, if that makes sense.
Well, I can go. Well, that's a really good question. Yeah, because I know some parents, don't really know, don't really, yeah, don't really know if their kids is being burned out. I mean, except maybe like maybe their teenager might just not be focusing in school, might not be doing so well in school. And, that might be a sign where maybe, their grades are not as as good as they should be. And so, just like I said, just the school performance in school, is probably one sign. And then just, you know, and then just, the teenager just maybe feeling more, exhausted, not wanting to do anything. And so that's definitely a sign. Okay, anybody else?
So I would say in my college life, I try to just go ahead and address problems early on. So like if it's say if it's a matter of the way like a professor is presenting something, I if they're presenting it in a way that's not really clear, depending on the professor, some professors are pretty set in their ways and aren't going to ever adjust, whereas there's some professors on the other hand, usually this seems to be correlated with newer professors who will thrive on feedback and will implement whatever changes are suggested to them. And so typically if they are of that type, I'm definitely going to tell them because they're more going to be more receptive to it. So it's sort of a process of gauging of how much they care about their job, for lack of a better way of wording it. So there's that aspect to it. And also as well, I find as well, it can be just as beneficial to comment on what you think, on what you found helpful specifically, so then they'll continue on with that pattern as well. And as for work life, I haven't ever really had a situation arise yet where so I can't really comment there.
I would comment on that question by basically saying, you know, I would say for the college life situation, especially if you are starting off in college, getting ready to start off in college, transitioning from high school, you know, be sure that you have everything you need to help you succeed. Because, I mean, coming from somebody who's actually experienced freshman college life, well, my experience was a little different, but but probably a freshman in college going into a major university can be quite stressful, especially if you're somebody who is neurodiverse or has, you know, specific conditions like ADHD or dyslexia, autism, etc. Just make sure that you have everything prepared for yourself to get ready for the college experience. You know, get your accommodations set up, you know, find the right places to go, you know, find counselors to talk to, and be able to sort of get yourself into that comfortable position of, you know, because you want to be able to succeed and be able to fulfill your dreams and your long-term goals, you know, and you don't want to have these hazards in the way to, so, you know, depending on who you are, you know, be vocal about what conditions you have and how to be able to succeed in life. Or if you don't, you know, find somebody that be able to help you be the voice that you're looking for. And as for the workplace, I would say, you know, given my current situation, I've only been working at SAS for a few months. Again, just, you know, try to be vocal with the people that you're with. See, in my situation, I work in a department with other coworkers, and I have a manager that I work with around the department. My manager is basically the person that I would talk to basically about, okay, how I've been doing lately with my work situation, and, you know, am I getting enough work done? Am I getting all the stuff that I need to help me succeed? And obviously, you know, there could be other organizations at a particular company that may also sponsor, you know, things that you could look into to, you know, to voice yourself. You know, it could be, you know, it could be a neurodiversity program. It could be other kind of advocacies that look for people to just kind of share their experiences, and how they feel about the work environment and all the work environment. But to sum it all up, just be a voice. And if you don't have that voice, find someone that be willing to be the voice for you. Because again, you want to be able to succeed in life, and the idea is that you want to be able to succeed.
So I have a pretty distinctive perspective on these issues as an autistic person on the one hand, and a lawyer who's taken higher education and employment cases on the other. And personally, I have always taken a sort of live to fight another day approach to getting what I want in life. So I'll preface what I say with that. Before I've gone into a higher education or employment environment, I have tried pretty hard to suss out how welcoming it's going to be. There are risks, and in some fields, being openly autistic is going to be safer than others. But for me, I have really liked being out because I can easily, you know, if I see shock, maybe shock and horror when I tell someone, then I know that degree program or that workplace is going to be more challenging for me. If I see confusion, you know, if someone's never encountered anyone like me before, I know that things may be a little extra complicated on the one hand, but on the other, I may have a chance to make a good first impression. And that is advice I give at least to people who feel safe doing it, whether it's being out themselves, which is a really efficient way to sort out people who don't want to be around you. Or if you don't feel comfortable being out, still just try to suss out and gauge whether they've ever seen someone with your disability before, whether they have experience meeting needs like yours, and how willing they seem to be to work with you. I highly recommend, once somebody gets into a higher education or employment setting, asking for needed accommodations quickly, solving any problems quickly. If there's a problem on the horizon that hasn't become a performance issue or a GPA issue yet, that's the best time to deal with it. And I do recommend knowing one's rights, and if informal measures, if talking to the people around you don't get you what you need, seeking legal advice, if you can get it sooner rather than later, can be good, because a lot of these problems, the longer you let them go, the less solvable they get, even if you get a lawyer involved. So I don't recommend letting how welcoming an environment is going to be being the sole determining factor of whether you go there or not. But it is something to think about. You have to, if you run into an environment that you really want to be in, but it's not going to be as welcoming, it's not going to be as accommodating, you have to weigh how much you want to be there against the reality that they're going to be rigid and throw up obstacles, and it may be harder to get what you need. And that's something that is such an individual judgment call, and we've all got to do what we think is best. But I think it's really important to try to make a realistic assessment of that. And if you're going into one of those trickier environments where there may be more rigidity, there may be more reluctance to offer accommodations, and you might really have to fight for them if you need them. There may be people who are uncomfortable working with someone who is autistic or who has some other label that you have. I think the right choice is not always to avoid those kinds of environments, but it's important to go in with your eyes open, so that that realistic front end assessment really helps.
So we haven't really done anything directly with any employer at all. As of yet, we would certainly like to. It's just the opportunity has not risen yet. So we can't really do any direct action. So therefore, more of what we focus on is just trying to help the individual and working on an individual basis, because that's just all we can do for right now. And as for like things that I think could be done, there's a lot of structural changes that we could make to working practices. Of course, these vary heavily from industry to industry because, well, say like for example, a Scrum meeting for say like in software development, that's not really something that happens in, say, if you're in, I can't think of another occupation right now, but you get what I mean. That different industries have different practices, and therefore these adjustments would need to be made to fit each individual case, because all these cases are different and they need to be approached in different ways. I'm not sure if I even really answered your question there. I apologize.
Not really. I don't really have much job experience, but what I could say is, like Ellie said, each business varies, and depending on what you do and like what job you're going for, I think what I would say would be try to do like the best you can, like do like the 100% of what you can possibly accomplish, and try to show those skills to your possible employer. And if they still don't accept you either autistic or not, then that's their loss.
Well, I would say, well, personally, my biggest advice is, don't feel intimidated to have to get a job at any, as soon as possible. And no matter how old you are. See, as I mentioned before, I was a bit of a late bloomer when I started an internship and got a job. I'm 28. I'm 28 right now, and I got a job. I focused more on school. I focused more on school than I focused on work at the moment. But but to sum it all up, my advice would be, don't feel intimidated that you have to get into the workforce anytime soon. Let time and patience lead you in naturally to when you feel like you're going to start work. You want to start working when you feel comfortable to do it.
Okay, yeah, I can go. I would say my advice to an autistic student that's looking into going to the workforce. I would say one advice would be, to, just definitely don't be yeah, as Cameron said, just don't be in a hurry to get a job. I understand that people want, to have different reasons for getting a job. One of the main reasons is to get a paycheck. But I would say, just take your time and, do your research, like I said, just talk, see a career counselor, and ask them, and just find out, what your strengths are, what you do best, and what type of work interests you, and then just kind of just network, just ask around, if you are really interested in if it's something that really interests you, just do your research, do your homework, ask people. But I'll say, definitely go to a career counselor. And I know in some cases, some people might want to, work with a job coach, if they feel, they don't, if they don't feel any confident about getting a job, or they think that they may not get the job because they might not do so well in an interview. So I mean, I would say any of those things work. Like if you feel like you need more help with preparing for the workforce, then it might be it might be necessary for you to work with a job coach or a career counselor that can help you get to where you would like to get to.
So I think where you have to start is looking at your strengths. The way a lot of us are brought up is with a lot of focus on our weaknesses. And that's something for any parents watching who are raising autistic children who are still fairly young. Don't do that. It will really hobble your child in life if you focus on weaknesses. People get jobs based on their strengths. That's how, those of us who, not everyone has that much choice in their career. Some people just jump right into the workforce quickly without much thought as to what they like because they need a paycheck so much. And that's a reality that applies to autistic people too, that we've got to recognize. But those of us who have the luxury of some choice don't tend to choose our careers based on what we're bad at. We play to our strengths, and that's how anybody who's successful in life, autistic or not, does things. So many of our weaknesses in life are things that we can pay someone else to do, frankly, if we just make enough money. So be realistic with yourself about your strengths and your weaknesses. And you don't have to know what you want to do with your entire rest of your life right off the bat. People change careers all the time these days. But when you're trying to figure out what your initial step out of school is going to be, the first thing that you try to do for a while, and if you don't like it, move on in a few years, should be like make a plan around your strengths. Find a job that will suit your strengths, or maybe more than one, and target your effort and your attention to that. What worked really well for me was being pretty clear on what job I wanted and just sort of building what my resume needed to be backward from there. And then I was able to spend a few years just checking off all the boxes to have the right resume, to be a really good candidate for an entry-level disability rights legal job. And I think that, once you know where you're going and you know that it's something that'll work for you probably at least for a while, you start building relationships. Then you need to start networking, which is hard and it's scary. especially for a lot of us. And I think it's awkward even for neurotypicals, but it's just a learned skill that pretty much anyone can learn. So you do that, you form those relationships, you get people who believe in you, who will make further connections for you and tell you where you need to go and give you more insight into what boxes you need to check to be a really good candidate to get where you want to go. And then hopefully you're at the point of applying for jobs. And I think for those who struggle with interviews, practice interviews with someone who's willing to give you honest, frank feedback and keep working with you and working with you can be really good, especially if you've got a career counselor at your school who will do that. And all of those things, I don't know if they'll work for everyone else. I have only my own experience in that regard, but for me, all of those things added up to enough.
Well, I try to like like schedule out my my day before like the meeting. So if I can do like some of my assignments before the meeting, then I can probably make that meeting. But like if the assignment is like a very long one, since like all I'm taking is studio classes right now, then I probably might miss a meeting, but I would probably email first. But other than that, I try to like structure meeting times and like classwork and varying different ways. I'm not explaining this well. I'm very sorry, but that.
Well, for me, I am doing a lot of different things right now. So I have school and then ASA, and then I'm also on a student project. We're building an app and hopefully going to turn that into a company in by the end of the year. And so I run 3 different Scrum teams for that. So that's chaos. And on top, so I run Scrum meetings every other day for 3 different teams. And yeah, so basically Outlook calendar is the greatest invention ever. And without that, I don't know what I would do. So definitely that's very useful to reach that balance, as you put it. Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming. I greatly appreciate your time. Good luck if you're going to the career fair thing. And yeah, I hope you all do great. And yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter handle is @ElliesToaster. I post just stuff about autism and computer science jokes.
Well, I appreciate everybody coming to the career fair and getting a chance to listen to all of our, all of our different experiences, whether we student or professional worker with a full-time or part-time job position. Just remember that, be yourself, be vocal, be who you are, because you matter, and you all need, and you all you all matter, and you need to be, and rewind. Just basically, you know, be yourself, be vocal, be, you know, try to help out if you can, you know, let others help you, and, you know, just be yourself, especially if you're going to be talking to your talking to the employers at this awesome career fair that we have.
Yeah, I would say that my advice would be, you know, just, you know, yeah, I mean, just keep thriving, you know, just focus on your strengths, and you know, like I said, and you know, like I said, just never, you know, just keep doing you. Um, is another one, you know, and just make sure, you know, like I mean, just you shouldn't care what other people think about you. You just want to, you just want to make sure that you find, you know, the employers that understands you, that you know that want, you know, that would love to have you, that would love to hire you. Because even if you get turned down a job at your dream job, or whatever you might call it, just just know that, just don't give up. There's always going to be, other jobs, that other employers that will, that will take you on. And I'm, like I said, I'm just fortunate that that my agency, was able, to use me. And I mean, even though I didn't really have a lot of experience, working in the disability, field, other than just, being around other, autistic people, and leading, the social groups, and everything like that. And so so that's all for me. What else?
Well, I know this is a tough time we're going through, but okay. All I can say is, like, y'all can do this. Y'all can make it through, because we are resilient. You're resilient. All I can say is, even when, like, going into college and higher education, like, don't think about the don'ts, think about the do's. Well, think about, like, can I word this? Okay, focus on your strengths. If you know you can do it, then focus on that. That's all I gotta say. But just know that even though, like, you think you can't, like, take it anymore, or, like, if you experience burnout, just try to find a way around it. Just help if you need it. No one will shame you for asking for help.
Play to your strengths. Believe in yourself. Find people who believe in you and cultivate strong relationships with them. And I think my Twitter handle's already in the chat, and I'm generally not hard to find. Don't hesitate to get in touch if you want help or advice. I'm always happy to talk to younger autistic people about what's worked for me, which is really all I know, and your mileage probably will vary, but I'm always happy to give whatever advice or help I can.